Get ready for a journey back in time.
Yeah.
47 million years, to be exact, to an India that was much warmer than today. So warm, in fact, that it was home to some truly gigantic snakes.
Oh, yeah.
And when I say gigantic, I'm not talking about your average garden variety.
Right.
Today, we're deep diving into the discovery of Vasuki Indicus,
Okay.
a snake so massive it makes a bus look like a toy.
You're not kidding. This thing was a monster, somewhere between 36 and 50 feet long. Imagine 2 double-decker buses parked end to end.
Wow.
That's the kind of scale we're talking about.
It's hard to even picture, isn't it? It's amazing to think that something this massive could have roamed the Earth. And what's even crazier is that its fossilized vertebrae were actually discovered back in 2005 in a Gujarat coal mine.
And get this, they were initially misidentified as crocodile bones. It wasn't until 2022 that researchers took a closer look and realized just how unique these fossils were.
That's incredible. It really goes to show how piecing together the past from fragments can be quite the puzzle. And sometimes it takes a fresh perspective to see the whole picture. Speaking of seeing the whole picture, the scientists decided to name this prehistoric beast Vasuki Indicus. That name rings a bell, doesn't it?
It does. Vasuki is the name of the serpent king in Hindu mythology.
Right.
He's known for his immense size and strength, and is often depicted wrapped around the god Shiva. It's a pretty evocative name for a giant prehistoric snake.
It really is. And it makes you wonder, could there be a connection between these ancient myths and the real-life creatures that roamed the Earth millions of years ago? Did our ancestors draw inspiration from encounters with creatures like Vasuki Indicus when crafting their tales?
It's a fascinating thought. While we can't say for sure, it's certainly possible that these ancient stories have roots in real-life encounters with these incredible animals. I mean, imagine coming face-to-face with a snake that size. Wouldn't that make its way into your stories and beliefs?
Absolutely. Now, before we get too carried away with mythology, let's get back to the science.
Yeah.
How does Vasuki Indicus size up against other prehistoric giants like Titanoboa, which until recently was considered the largest snake ever discovered?
Well, Titanoboa measured in at a respectable 42 feet. While size estimations based on fossils can be tricky, it's entirely possible that Vasuki Indicus could take the crown for the largest snake to have ever slithered on Earth.
So India might be home to not one, but 2 kings of snakes.
Yeah.
The legendary Vasuki and the very real Vasuki Indicus. But what allowed this prehistoric behemoth to grow to such a colossal size? Was it all about the food?
Food certainly played a role, but the real key to its size lies in the climate. Remember, we're talking of a time when India was a much warmer place with average temperatures hovering around 82 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, for a cold-blooded creature like a snake, that's like hitting the jackpot.
So warmer temperatures meant faster metabolisms, which allowed snakes to grow larger.
Yeah.
Almost like how bodybuilders today bulk up by hitting the gym and fueling their bodies with protein shakes, right?
You've got it. Vasuki Indicus essentially had a prehistoric protein shake in the form of a constantly warm climate. It's a fascinating example of how climate can directly impact the evolution and development of species.
So we've got this giant snake soaking up the heat and growing to epic proportions. It makes you wonder, what kind of world did this Vasuki Indicus call home? What was life like in India 47 million years ago?
Picture this: India wasn't a subcontinent yet. It was an island drifting towards Asia. The climate was tropical, thinky, steamy rainforests and vast swampy areas teeming with life. It was basically a reptile paradise.
Wow, a reptile paradise. So it wasn't just giant snakes enjoying this tropical buffet.
Oh, not at all. The fossil records from this period show all sorts of interesting creatures. We're talking turtles, crocodiles, and other snakes, many of which were much larger than their modern relatives, thanks to that warm climate boost.
It's like stepping back into a real-life land of the lost, only this time it's ruled by reptiles. You have to wonder if our early human ancestors migrating out of Africa ever stumbled across these giants. Talk about a scary encounter.
Right. It makes you think about how these experiences might have shaped their myths and legends. I mean, if you saw a snake the size of a bus, wouldn't you tell stories about it for generations?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But let's get back to Vasuki Indicus. What was its rainforest home like?
Imagine dense jungles with towering trees, their branches tangled with vines and creepers. The undergrowth would have been thick and humid, perfect for an ambush predator like Vasuki Indicus to lie in wait for its prey.
That sounds pretty intense, even without a giant snake lurking in the shadows. What kind of plants would have thrived in this environment?
We're talking prehistoric ferns, palms, and cycads galore. These plants would have provided food and shelter for a whole range of animals, from early primates and birds to all sorts of insects.
So it was a vibrant ecosystem with Vasuki Indicus right at the top of the food chain. That must have had a big impact on everything else living there.
Exactly. The presence of such a large predator would have shaped the behavior and evolution of other species. It's like a ripple effect. Every creature in that ecosystem would have had to adapt to the presence of Vasuki Indicus.
That makes me wonder, what happens when an apex predator like that disappears? What kind of impact did its extinction have on this ancient ecosystem?
That's a great question, and it's something paleontologists are still trying to figure out. The extinction of an apex predator can trigger a cascade of effects, from shifts in prey populations to changes in plant life and even the physical landscape.
So the loss of a single species, even one as massive as the Vasuki Indicus, can have ripple effects throughout the entire ecosystem.
Absolutely. It really highlights how interconnected and delicate the balance of life on Earth is. Studying prehistoric creatures like Vasuki Indicus gives us a glimpse into the past, but it also helps us understand the importance of preserving biodiversity today.
So we've talked about its size, its diet, its impact on the ecosystem. But what about Vasuki Indicus itself? What do we know about its behavior? How did it live and interact with its environment?
We can't observe it directly, of course, but we can learn a lot from its anatomy and the behavior of its modern relatives. For instance, the shape of its vertebrae tells us it was a powerful constrictor capable of squeezing the life out of its prey.
So it wasn't just big, it was strong too. Are there any other clues hidden in its bones?
Yes. The shape of its skull and jaw suggests it had a wide gape, meaning it could swallow prey much larger than its head. Remember those whale fossils found in the same rock layer? That hints at just how massive its meals could be.
A snake eating a whale, that's incredible. Did it hunt on land or in the water?
That's a great question, and it's something scientists are still debating. While Vasuki indicus was primarily a land dweller, its fossils have been found in areas that were once coastal, so it's possible it ventured into the water to hunt, maybe even ambushing those whales near the shore.
So a giant snake, comfortable on land and maybe even in the water with a powerful constricting ability and a taste for whales, that paints a pretty terrifying picture.
Hmm.
Did anything prey on the Vasuki indicus? Did it have any natural enemies?
As an adult, probably not many. As an apex predator, it was at the top of the food chain. However, a younger Vasuki indicus would have been much more vulnerable. They could have been preyed upon by other large reptiles, birds of prey, or even larger members of their own species.
It's a jungle out there, even for a giant snake. What about its reproductive behavior? Do we know anything about how it mated and raised its young?
Unfortunately, the fossil record is a bit silent on those details, but we can look to modern snakes for clues. Many large constrictors lay eggs and don't provide much parental care, leaving their offspring to fend for themselves.
So it was likely a solitary creature, except during mating season. It makes you wonder, what were the odds of survival for a baby Vasuki indicus in that prehistoric world?
Survival would have been a constant challenge, even with such powerful parents.
This has been an amazing journey back in time, exploring the world of the Vasuki indicus. Before we move on, is there anything else you'd like to share about this prehistoric giant?
One thing that continues to intrigue researchers is the question of how Vasuki indicus got so big. While the warm climate was a major factor, there might have been other things at play. Maybe an abundance of prey, or even some unique physiological adaptations that we haven't discovered yet.
It sounds like Vasuki indicus still has plenty of secrets to reveal. It's a reminder that science is a process of ongoing discovery, and there's always something new to learn, even about creatures that lived millions of years ago.
Exactly. And speaking of things, we're still figuring out what eventually led to the extinction of Vasuki indicus. It ruled its ecosystem for millions of years, so something must have changed dramatically.
That's a great question. Do we have any theories about what might have toppled this king of snakes?
Paleontologists are still piecing together that puzzle, but there are a few likely culprits. Climate change is always a suspect. Perhaps the temperatures cooled down, making it harder for Vasuki indicus to maintain its massive size. Or maybe the availability of prey shifted, making it harder to find those giant meals it needed.
So it might not have been one single catastrophic event, but rather a series of changes that gradually made it harder for Vasuki indicus to survive.
That's the most likely scenario. Extinction is rarely a simple event. It's often a combination of factors, both environmental and biological, that eventually push a species over the edge.
It's a reminder that even the most dominant creatures are ultimately vulnerable to the forces of nature. Their reign can't last forever.
Very true. The story of Vasuki indicus is a cautionary tale about the fragility of life and the importance of understanding the delicate balance of ecosystems. What happens to one species can have ripple effects that impact the entire web of life.
So what does the discovery of Vasuki indicus tell us about the evolution of snakes? It seems like it really pushes the boundaries of what we thought was possible in terms of size.
Absolutely. Vasuki Indicus challenges our understanding of snake evolution. It shows us that snakes were capable of achieving truly gigantic proportions, much larger than anything we see today. It also raises new questions about the factors that allowed them to grow so big, and the ecological pressures that might have driven such gigantism.
It's like finding a missing link, a glimpse into a lost world that we could only imagine before. It makes you wonder what other incredible creatures might be out there hidden in the fossil record, just waiting to be discovered.
Absolutely. Paleontology is full of surprises, and every new discovery has a potential to rewrite our understanding of the history of life on Earth. Who knows? Maybe there's an even bigger snake out there just waiting to be unearthed.
Now that's a thought. It just goes to show that there's always more to learn and explore, and the world is full of wonders waiting to be uncovered.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, this has been an incredible deep dive into the world of Fuki Indicus, from its initial discovery to its potential link to ancient mythology, its massive size, its diet, its habitat, and even its extinction. What a fascinating creature. Thanks for guiding us through this journey.
It was my pleasure.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this incredible adventure back in time. We hope you've enjoyed learning about Vasuki Indicus as much as we have. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep that sense of wonder alive. Who knows what other secrets the past holds?